Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take stacks of information and unearth the most compelling insights, helping you get truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging into a topic that keeps millions glued to their screens: reality television. Is it just harmless fun, or does it cast a longer shadow than we realize?
It's a fascinating area, definitely, especially when you consider just how, well, pervasive reality TV has become in our media landscape. For this deep dive, our sources span a pretty wide range. We've got critical opinion pieces, academic studies on media effects, and even some candid insights straight from reality TV producers themselves.
Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack the many layers of reality TV. We're going to explore its impact, sometimes surprising, on individual mental health and body image, how it subtly shapes our social interactions online, and even the ways it reinforces or sometimes, interestingly, challenges societal stereotypes, particularly around gender. You might be quite surprised by what we uncover when we peel back the curtain. Okay, let's unpack this. So, right off the bat, the first question we have to grapple with is pretty fundamental. How much of reality TV is actually real? I mean, the very name suggests a straightforward, unedited recounting of events, right? But our sources immediately throw some cold water on that idea.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how consistently critics and insiders point to various forms of manipulation. And we're not just talking about minor tweets. This includes things like deceptive editing, where conversations get rearranged or taken totally out of context. It's also about coaching participants on what to say or how to act, sometimes pre-generating entire storylines before filming even starts.
Wow.
And even staging or restaging scenes for the cameras to get that, perfect dramatic shot.
And it goes deeper than just editing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One of our sources shares this really compelling anecdote about a friend who went on reality TV. Apparently, this person was genuinely the nicest guy, but the show made him look absolutely awful.
How so?
Well, they took clips from days later after he'd been intentionally deprived of food and sleep.
Oh, wow.
And inserted them right into his day one introduction. So the result? He came across as grumpy and awful from the very start, a completely manufactured perception.
That really spotlights how producers operate behind the scenes, doesn't it? Interviews with lower-level producers, like supervising producers, story editors, they reveal their primary directive is clear: create entertaining stories.
Right. Entertainment first.
Exactly. Ensuring an accurate portrayal of real life isn't necessarily top of the list. Network representatives, in fact, specifically push for shows to be cast with characters designed to maximize conflict.
That's quite something. So if that conflict doesn't just naturally bubble up, producers are almost expected to, nudge it along.
Precisely. They might manipulate conditions by varying tasks or games, maybe making them intentionally frustrating, or even, as one executive producer candidly confessed, making alcohol freely available during tapings.
Really?
Yeah. And apparently that tactic often requires them to cut a lot of slurred speech from the final product.
Hearing about those tactics, it really makes you wonder about the ethical lines being crossed. Are there real human costs when entertainment takes precedence like that?
Absolutely. And this raises serious ethical concerns about the fair and, responsible treatment of non-professional actors. These people often aren't prepared for the psychological toll. A consulting psychologist for the show Survivor even went so far as to compare some reality TV producers to those who ran the infamous Stanford prison experiment.
Wow, that's a strong comparison.
It is. He suggested that many of these shows simply wouldn't be allowed if they were overseen by proper human subjects committees, the ones that protect participants in research. And sadly, we've seen tragic outcomes, too. A contestant from Expedition Robinson, which was actually the inspiration for Survivor, tragically died by suicide after being banished from the show.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. And while an executive producer claimed that accurate portrayal and participant decompression were priorities, the overwhelming evidence from other producers suggests that really pragmatic considerations for audience stimulation and ratings often just take precedence over individual well-being.
So the first big takeaway here is that reality TV isn't just bending the truth. It's often a carefully engineered social experiment, sometimes with serious consequences for the people involved, driven mostly by ratings. Okay, so given the ethical tightrope producers walk with participants, it makes you wonder, what's the actual cost to us, the viewers? Are we truly just passively entertained, or is something deeper happening psychologically? One of our sources, Chinny Quack, argues that reality TV can have a massive impact on a person's mental health. She suggests these shows are more than harmless entertainment. She points to studies that show lasting psychological and behavioral effects.
And this really resonates with research, especially when we look at teens. They're particularly susceptible. Adolescence is such a crucial period for identity formation. During this time, teens engage heavily in what psychologists call observational learning through social comparison.
Okay, break that down a bit.
Well, think of it like this. They're constantly watching and comparing themselves to others, and they often use media figures and celebrities as models to help form their own attitudes, opinions, behaviors, and importantly, their self-image.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really compelling, connecting to what you said about teens. Comparison to those unrealistic body ideals, which are just everywhere in reality TV, can lead to serious issues like body dissatisfaction, lower self-esteem, and even disordered eating behavior.
That's right.
Teens are, in fact, described as arguably the most susceptible group to body image disturbances and eating disorders in the U.S.
It's a serious concern. However, it's not a completely one-sided story. We should mention that.
Okay.
Another perspective from a source named Tess Ho suggests the impact of reality TV on mental health is, quote, not as negative as some may believe. She argues that for some people, these shows can simply be entertaining, maybe provide opportunities for personal growth by watching others overcome challenges, and even educate viewers on practical knowledge or promote motivational mindsets. So for some, there might be more positive, perhaps even aspirational kind of engagement.
That's an important nuance. So whether the impact is positive or negative, it seems clear there is an impact. And this brings us to another really fascinating intersection. How reality TV has sort of blurred the lines between celebrity and everyday life, especially with the explosion of social media.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the idea is that anyone can become a public celebrity, right? Without needing traditional talents or exceptional looks, specific skills, or even immense wealth.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how social cognitive theory helps us understand this phenomenon.
Okay.
Put simply, social cognitive theory suggests we learn by watching others, especially those we admire or who seem to be rewarded, and then we tend to mimic their behaviors. In this context, reality TV characters serve as these highly visible models. Their behaviors are observed and then often reproduced by viewers.
Right.
And the platforms of Web 2.0, like social networking sites, provide this brand new stage, basically, for enacting those observed behaviors. It makes it incredibly easy for individuals to mediate themselves, essentially, broadcast their own lives, and reach mass audiences.
And there's actual evidence of this connection, isn't there? A study on young adults found a consistent, positive, and significant relationship between the amount of reality TV they watched and various online behaviors. This included things like the sheer length of time spent logged into social networking sites, the overall size of their friend network, and even the proportion of friends they hadn't actually met face-to-face. The study called it promiscuous friending.
Promiscuous friending, yeah. That raises an important question, though. Why this specific connection? Why reality TV and not other genres? Well, the study suggests that reality TV demonstrates a value system that directly equates celebrity status and fame with social prestige and personal value. Essentially, participants on these shows are often explicitly rewarded with celebrity status, maybe cash prizes. This incentivizes viewers to mimic those fame-seeking behaviors online.
Like competing for attention.
Exactly. Actively competing for attention through building these expansive social networks. Interestingly, the study found no such correlation with other television genres like news or fiction or educational programming.
So it really suggests a unique and powerful influence specifically from reality television itself.
It does seem that way.
Okay, so we've seen how reality TV manipulates narratives, affects our mental health, even drives our online behavior. Now let's get into a more specific deep dive from our sources. A study focusing on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Right.
This research used something called multimodal critical discourse analysis, which sounds complex, but it's essentially a detailed way of looking not just at what's said, but also how it's presented visually through sound to uncover deeper meanings and messages.
Exactly. A very thorough approach.
And this study examined how the show portrays women and whether it reinforces or perhaps challenges gender stereotypes.
And the results are quite nuanced, actually. It shows that some stereotypes are indeed reinforced, definitely, but others are surprisingly challenged.
How does that work?
Well, the reinforcement often happens when stereotypes are kind of weaponized by the women against each other within the show's conflicts. However, the show can challenge those very stereotypes when characters act in ways that contradict the narratives being set up for them.
Interesting. The study looked at 4 key themes, right? Starting with the set itself.
Yes, exactly. The setting. For example, the luxurious reunion set, which required a significant financial investment, immediately highlights wealth and status as central to these women's lives. It screens importance.
Mm.
And the moderator, notably the only man present, sits in this central leading position. Some interpret that as subtly reinforcing male dominance, even within this highly feminine sphere.
Okay, so that's the setting. What about the themes?
Right, moving into the thematic findings. First, romantic relationships. Here we see this constant push and pull. For instance, Dorrit Kemsley's initial openness about her marital struggles seemed to challenge the perfect housewife stereotype. But then her later conformity to it, claiming everything was suddenly better than ever, reinforced that image, especially when you see other cast members kind of smirking at her response.
Right, the reaction shots tell a story.
They do. The show also reinforces the gold digger stereotype, even when Dorrit claims she married her husband PK when he wasn't wealthy. It keeps coming up. But then, in stark contrast, you have Sutton Strack's storyline, particularly her journey to reclaim agency after her ex-husband's controlling behavior. That profoundly subverts the stereotype of a submissive wife.
Ah.
The study describes it as challenging hegemonic masculinity, that dominant idea of male control.
But not all storylines challenge stereotypes.
No. Kyle Richards' narrative, for example, focusing heavily on her husband's actions and her sort of unwavering trust, aligns more with the stereotype of a wife dependent on her spouse. It portrays a more traditional performance of femininity.
Okay. What about career?
That was another key theme. We see a direct challenge play out when Kyle says to Sutton, sort of dismissively, "All you have is cashmere and a horse."
Implying she lacks substance.
Exactly, reinforcing the stereotype of a weak or passive woman who isn't enough on her own, just dabbling in things. But Sutton immediately calls Kyle out. She corrects her, stating she owns a store and has a very big new business. She actively challenges that narrative right there on screen.
Good for her. And conflict. That's central to these shows.
Absolutely. And conflicts on the show sometimes reduce women to simple types, like the Karen stereotype, which gets thrown around. In one exchange, Sutton accuses Kyle of strategically manipulating her image for the cameras. She calls her smart and clever and says she plays a good game of chess.
Suggesting it's all performance.
Precisely. It powerfully suggests that viewers aren't seeing genuine reality, but rather carefully performed actions designed for the audience.
And the last theme, physical appearance.
Yes, and this one is heavily reinforced. The stereotype of women being judged primarily on their looks is just constant. Discussions about weight loss, plastic surgery, even direct questions about using drugs like Ozempic for weight loss. It all highlights this intense, often public, focus on appearance. And when Dorrit's style change is discussed, a viewer comment pops up implying, PK put Dorrit on a budget. That reinforces traditional gender roles where the husband controls the finances.
It's fascinating how all these small moments add up.
It really is.
And this all ties back to some really compelling academic ideas, right? Like Richard Dyer's work on stereotyping.
Exactly. How certain types are constructed to maintain the boundaries of what society considers normal.
And it connects to the idea of performative gender, too.
Yes, the idea that gender isn't some fixed identity, but something we constantly do or enact based on social expectations and the roles we're playing.
Right.
What this study on Real Housewives strikingly reveals is how even shows that seem to just reinforce stereotypes can, in subtle ways, also challenge them.
Often through the characters themselves, just defying expectations.
Right. It reminds us that these portrayals are rarely just black and white. There's complexity there.
So what does this all mean when we put it together? We've seen that reality TV, while, undeniably entertaining and a huge force in our culture,
Yeah,
it's far from a neutral mirror of life.
definitely not neutral.
It's a complex, often heavily manipulated medium with undeniable real-world implications. It influences our perceptions of ourselves, our relationships, even how we act online, from the careful crafting of storylines by producers to the subtle ways it reinforces or challenges these deeply ingrained gender norms. It's shaping more than just our entertainment choices.
Yeah, this deep dive truly reveals how the reality in reality TV is often a meticulously constructed narrative. It's designed for audience engagement, for ratings, and it has these profound implications for how we perceive ourselves and how we interact, especially online. Ultimately, it really pushes us to think much more critically about the content we consume day in, day out.
So the next time you're settling in for your favorite reality show, maybe take a moment and consider this. Beyond the drama and the laughs, what subtle messages are actually being communicated to you? And how might the reality you're watching be shaping your own? It's something powerful for you to mull over, or maybe explore on your own.